never left home. We never had to run. We never had to kill. Why are we alive when even the gods are dead?
Ooh, man, reviews.
Yeah.
How long has it been? It's been months.
I don't even know how to review anything anymore.
Okay, all right. Well, let's start.
So I won't. I'll let you do it.
Let's start by reviewing something small before we get to the Banner Saga. Review Jack in the Box Taco.
Oh, it was amazing. They're deep fried, crunchy, with a soft meat-like interior. A little
What do you give it?
overpacked with lettuce. I give it 4 out of 5 stars.
Really? That
Yes.
seems kind of high. All right. Well, now that we've got that out of the way, you're all warmed up.
Okay, I'm good.
Let's get in. All right. We got the Banner Saga. Pretty much one of the first kind of, or at least for me, big anticipated releases of 2014.
Yes.
We got a lot of HD stuff, HD remakes coming out right now, and
Yep.
kind of garbage
A
shit.
lot of shovelware.
Right. But this is something that I've actually had my eye on for a while, and this is this is a game that was kickstarted. It's being made by some local boys.
Yes. What's the name of the company?
Stoic.
Stoic.
Yes.
Just Stoic.
They're all very much just like in the office. They're just like
Yeah. They're Russian.
Jeff, Jason.
Nords.
Yes. And this was a game that was kickstarted, and now it's out on Steam. There was actually, I didn't realize this, there was actually a version of this that was out before called Factions or something like that. That was a multiplayer version of it. Yeah, where you could play online. But this is the full single-player version of the Banner Saga. And I like it.
Yes,
but there's some things.
Get to it later.
Okay, we'll get to that later. Let's start.
Tell us about the game.
All right. Are you a fan of Norse mythology?
Yes.
Is that what this is? Norse mythology?
Ish, mostly. Yeah,
Kinda?
I mean, it's fantasy.
Nordic,
It's fantasy, but it's to say it's heavily influenced by Nordic mythology is to is putting it lightly.
So, this is the first thing the game tells you guys, so I'm not considering it a spoiler. The gods are dead. The sun is stopped in the sky.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of shitty right now.
Yep.
And by shitty, it's actually funny because...
Sounds like a Nine Inch Nails song.
This is like...
Yeah, it is.
Shitty? That's a Nine Inch Nails song?
God is dead and no one cares.
Okay.
God is dead.
I thought there was a new Nine Inch Nails song.
The sun is stopped in the sky.
Called Shitty that I didn't know about.
It's a B-side.
So yeah, basically, to kind of know what this game is, it's kind of like Mass Effect, right? Meets the terrible moral choices of The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Set in this like Nordic, snowy, the sun is always up.
All good.
Land.
All good. I'm listening. Continue.
Yes. And you play as, there's multiple main characters. You're generally going to stick with 2 of them. One of them is a Varl, which are giants.
Okay.
The guys with giant horns coming out of their head.
Yeah.
Big old dudes. And then you got men who are just, doing their medieval man thing. Walking around, and basically there is a scourge coming in. The world's kind of fucked, and you're basically just trying to survive in whatever way you possibly can, and that's basically the setup for the story.
Sounds like a good story.
Yeah,
I dig it.
I mean, there's no hobbits, there's no elves.
Great.
I kind of enjoy this, like the outside of
This sounds all testosterone. It's like, let's take all the wimpy pussy shit out of Lord of the Rings and keep the men and the giants.
There's not even any orcs. I mean, like, it's just these guys that look like they walked right out of Shadow of the Colossus. These big stone dudes, the Dredge, who are coming in. Which, how metal is that name?
That's pretty metal.
And
they look like Jack Kirby characters.
They do. They got giant horns coming out of their head.
Galactus armor.
Yeah, and those dudes are coming down and they're fucking a bunch of shit up. So that's the conceit of the game. To say anything more would probably be getting a little bit too much into spoiler territory. But what I will say is that the game is presented in this just gorgeous art style.
It is breathtaking.
You've got, in so many indie games where they go with kind of a minimalist thing. Here it's like, it's almost like they went for the maximum amount of, like, they realized we can't animate this entire thing, right?
Sure.
It's not going to be fully animated. But if we're going to have talking character portraits, a la Final Fantasy or JRPGs, something like that, we're going to make them the most beautiful character portraits you've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's like Don Bluth, kind of old
Yeah.
Black Cauldron style.
Greatly influenced by Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. Very much the colored lines. Really just kind of dynamic portraits, and they have a little bit of animation on them. But most of the game, the plot that you're going to be getting outside of like 2, I think, kind of animated sequences in the game, is going to be these giant character portraits with a bunch of text at the bottom talking to you about what's going on. And this is actually pretty cool for an indie studio because it allows them to actually do a lot of kind of consequence-driven storytelling.
Okay.
Because you don't have to, write, you don't have to animate like 6 different versions. You just got these character portraits. So you can say like, I think you're the greatest. Frogs diverge.
Clearly, Jeff didn't do any of the writing on this.
And he's like, "Oh, thanks, man." Or you can say like, "You're a piece of shit, Frogs." And he's like, "Oh, well, fuck you too, bitch." And it's the exact same thing with different text below it.
Although now I'm wishing you had done some of the writing on this.
Yeah,
Frogs.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Here comes a sticking point.
So many consonant names. I got confused.
Well,
I got a little confused.
It's kind of racist.
I'm sorry. I know that it probably is. It's just there's like
everyone is named after a piece of IKEA furniture.
I'm not like that naming convention. I'm just not super familiar with it.
Sure.
And so it tends to sometimes slide out of my head after like the second K and the fourth L and the one name,
Yeah.
So I kind of there was a few points in the game where, because so much of the dialogue is subtitles at the bottom, I was primarily reading. I mean, I was doing the anti-rage select thing. I was very intently reading what was going on.
We don't read.
And sometimes I was doing so at the expense of looking up at the same character portrait over and over again.
Yeah.
And I would kind of lose a little bit of track of
who's who.
Who was who,
Yeah.
right.
See, the thing is, you got to do it the rage select way and stick with it. Don't read anything. Just make up your own story of what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a lot better.
Be like, "Hey, bro, do you want to go to the food court?" Like,
yeah.
Yes, I would love to go to the food court.
But first, I have to put my penis somewhere. Dick joke, dick joke.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to go.
You know how to do it.
I'm going to fucking Orange Julius.
Yes. I want to see a giant fucking Orange Julius to death. Not the drink, the business.
Oh, I thought do you know a guy? Julius
named Orange Julius.
He wears a lot of orange shirts and stuff.
He's a dealer.
That's right.
From 1977.
Yo, man, we got to go hit up Orange Julius on the way to the club.
Yeah. Get an 8-ball.
Anyway, sorry, we haven't done reviews in a while. I got to circle back over to the actual video game. So yeah, all that is the narrative stuff, and then there's basically kind of 3 parts to this game. There's this narrative focus, there's the traveling, and then there's the actual combat. So we'll go in order. The narrative comes up in a variety of different ways. Like when you're traveling, they will present you with these terrible, terrible options.
Yes.
Like it's one of those situations where there's no like, "Hey, hooray, everything's good," or "I'm going to be a total asshole." It's not Paragon and Renegade. It's all that muddy Walking Dead gray area.
Sure.
Where, some woman is like kills some other woman over some bullshit with her son, and you're just like, "Well, what do you do? We're marching for our lives here." Or like, okay, here's an example. You march through a village, right? And you've got a horde of bad guys behind you. They're just razing the countryside.
Yeah.
You walk through the village, and when you leave the village, some fighters want to come with you. They're like, "You guys seem to know what you're doing. You got a caravan. We want to come with you." But then the leader of the village comes in, and he's like, "You can't take those guys. If you take them, you're taking like half my fighters.
Right.
And when these guys get here, we're fucked."
Yeah.
So
You're fucked anyway.
Right. So you're like, "Well, do I just fuck this village?" And then they get to a point where they're like, "Well, we're going to try to attack you to keep you from taking these people from us." What do you do? Like, it's very gray, muddy, no right or no wrong.
I appreciate that. That's cool.
Yeah, there's some backstabbing turns, and the game is also, because of the way that it's set up, it will, like, you could say to somebody who is an actual fighter in the game, "Go fuck yourself," and they'll be like, "That's fine. Bye. I'm taking me and that other person that you use all the time and all of my guys, and we're gonna fuck off."
Whoa!
Right.
Let's talk about this, Fungenstürmender.
And the game doesn't have any there is no manual saving in this game, so it's not like you can be like, "Oh, I'm going to save and tell them to fuck off and see what happens." You have to go back to the last time the game saved, which can sometimes cause. The game is really encouraging you to just do what you think,
go with it,
take your lumps.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that. I ended up playing a bunch of sections over again, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So, all right, that's the narrative part. Very good writing. I really liked it a lot. It was very immersive. There's obviously a lot of lore to the story. The only thing that was a little bit of a turnoff is I really wish that there was a codex in this game, because it would have been nice when people say things in passing to be like, whoa, wait, what was that again?
Oh, right.
Or, like, I forgot. Because for the first, okay, I'm going to say this. For the first, 30 minutes of the game, I didn't really understand what a Varl was. The Varls are the giants.
Right.
They're just called Varl.
Right.
Right? And I didn't know what that was at first. I was like, what is that a guy?
Yeah.
Is it a place?
Is it a title?
Is it a thing? Is he like a Jarl, like from Skyrim or something?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought when we first started. Yeah.
No, that's just what they call the giants.
Okay.
So this game could have really benefited from having a codex, because it's not terrifically hard to follow, but it would have been nice from time to time to be able to go, wait, what is that again? Just So, all right, you got the narrative part. Then you've got the marching along the countryside part. And this part is a very small mini game where you're basically, you saw it in the dojo episode, where you're marching the dudes across from one side to the other, and you've got this little caravan, right? And the main part of this is just you've got supplies and morale that affect your fighting and stuff like that. And so you'll march these guys along, and you have to keep
Does
up with
anybody get
supplies.
dysentery?
No, but there are a few points in the game. Okay, so whenever you do something good in a battle, you get one renown. Like when you kill somebody, you get one renown. Or if you make like a valorous decision outside of battle in like an argument or something, you get some renown. Renown is the primary resource in the game. You use it to upgrade your guys, buy items, and buy supplies for your wagon train.
Oh, shit. What?
And so every day that you're on the road, this little thing goes around, and your little supply thing ticks down by one. And as more people join your caravan, the more supplies you need, or else it goes down faster. When that thing hits the bottom, every day that you march without supplies, like a bunch of people start dying out of your caravan.
Yeah.
And there have been points where like you can't turn the caravan around. Sometimes they'll make you leave an area, and you're like, oh wait, I didn't even buy supplies yet. And then you're less like,
hell.
oh shit, I've got 2 days of supplies, and the next town is like 6 days away.
Oh no.
There's also not really there's no counter or anything to tell you how far from the next thing you are. So there were times where I'm just like, this could be the end.
It's like you're out in the middle of nowhere on a road trip, and you're like passing the gas station. Nah, we can make it to the next one.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
Like villages, not like big towns you can see coming, but like sometimes there's just tiny little villages, and they just kind of show up out of nowhere, and suddenly you're stopping. Oh, like, oh, fuck, great. But sometimes those villages are just full of enemies, and there are no supplies there, and you're like, oh, bitch.
Bad guy village.
Yeah. So the main thing with the caravan is that you can also stop the caravan and you can rest. Every day you rest takes up supplies, but it raises the morale, and then that morale gets into the actual combat, which is interesting. This is a third-person, or a top-down, turn-based combat game, kind of like XCOM or Fire Emblem, with some kind of interesting differences. And the main one being that there is no terrain, there is no grouping like in Fire Emblem. Magic is almost non-existent in the game. There's a little bit later, but almost non-existent. So, like, just the simple placement of your warriors and how far they move and what order everything goes in is super important, to the point where the combat in this game, it's like, when I went into it, it was like, well, I played XCOM, I played Fire Emblem, I'm good with this, right?
Yeah.
It's more like a board game.
I'll take cover behind this Yox.
Right. It's more like chess than like XCOM. And it's interesting. It takes some getting used to, especially in the beginning. The other thing is, I don't so every unit in the game has a health, like a strength bar, right?
Yeah.
And then they've got an armor bar. So the way that the combat in the game works is that when you walk up to a guy, you can try to hit them. Every point of strength they have, or every point of armor they have over your strength, reduces your chance to be able to hit them at all, and reduces the amount of damage they take. When you hit them, it pulls their strength down. If you can hit either one of them. I'm sorry, I'm doing a bad job. You need to look at a fact for this, but it's interesting because every time you hit them, it brings their strength down. But your strength also dictates how hard you hit other people. So the more you get hurt, the less effective each person is. And it becomes a really difficult push and pull of like, Do you waste a turn trying to knock down their armor so that the next turn you can take off more of their strength, or you take a smaller strength hit so that their next hit is weaker because they have less strength to pick from?
That's a nice balance.
Yeah, it's really it takes a little bit of getting used to in the beginning, especially if you're used to, like, I just came off of playing a whole bunch of Fire Emblem and I was like, yeah, fuck it, woo! I got my ass handed to me at a certain point. But it's a really interesting system once you get used to it. It's a little bare, right? I mean, you've got ranged units, you've got heavy units, and you've got regular units. And that's pretty much it for both sides throughout the game. Now, all of your units have special abilities that you can activate via willpower, and most of them are abilities that work best when you've goaded the enemy into a specific type of formation or position, or you've got your guys positioned in a way so that you've got multiple guys in the same area. Almost every ability in this game requires you to do some forethought as to what's going to happen 3 turns down the line. And once you start getting into the habit of doing that, it can be really, really enjoyable, especially at higher difficulty levels, because once you start steamrolling the enemy team, you can really get to a place where you're just like fucking the shit out of them, and it's really, really nice. So the game is basically broken up between those 3 things. And every so often you'll get into a larger battle where you're fighting another army, but it's mostly just a series of prompts where you can choose, do you want to have your guys fight, or do you want to fight on their behalf to try to make the odds a little bit more even? There's even a thing where for a lot of battles, when you beat the enemy, it'll give you the option of being like, do you want to just be done, or do you want to try to kill another random 2 or 3 enemies with your guys already kind of messed up the way that they are, but you could get like items and more renown and stuff like that.
Sure.
And you can level up all your guys, but like I said, renown is your one resource. So at a certain point, you really start looking at that like, do I really want to upgrade these guys, or do I want to buy food so that my people don't starve to fucking death?
I love it that your currency is fame.
Yeah.
You're just walking into villages. Do you know who I am?
That's how it works in L.A., right?
Give me some food.
Nicolas Cage just goes in there and he's like, Starbucks me.
Starbucks me.
Starbucks me, bitch.
Nick Cage.
That's right, Nick Cage. In here at Starbucks.
I like to think that I like to think that in the game that when you get more renown, your beard grows a little bit more.
Yeah. Dude, those giants, those Varls, they have some hella beards.
Yeah.
Hella beards in that game. So now all that's good stuff, right? I got to talk about a few things that are not so great.
Okay.
This is a game that does not have very much in the realm of options. Now, I know that when I talked to you about playing Fire Emblem, right?
Yep.
You talked about eventually in Fire Emblem you turned off all the attack animations, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that here. You can't change the speed of combat to fast. So
Right.
you're like, I know how this is going to work. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
I don't need to watch his dredge go boom, 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 boom up to my guy.
Every time.
Like,
right.
just skip that whole turn and
Yeah.
then just show me what the fuck happened to
It's
my
like
guy.
after a certain point in Fire Emblem, you just turn all that off, and it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
here's the cause. What's the effect? I don't
There's
need
also
to see the in between.
There's also a thing about the combat that I'm not entirely super great with, and that is that combat always goes you enemy, you enemy, you enemy, you enemy until there's only one enemy left.
Yeah.
When the last enemy is left, then that guy goes, and then all of your guys get to go. But what that means is that as you start whittling down the enemy forces, if you leave like one big guy left, you get to a point where every other turn he gets to move. Like he gets to move more and more and more. So if the other side has fewer guys than you, it can actually be an advantage because their units get to keep moving over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
And your units still have to wait in between. It's like it's weird to me conceptually because it's like the fewer guys they have, the faster all their guys get to move because they get more turns than you.
Right.
A little weird. So yeah, some things back to the things that are not super fantastic. I wish there were some options to customize combat. I wish there were some options on the UI. You get into situations because it's got one camera angle where it's kind of hard to you've got a bunch of guys all grouped together and you're
Right.
trying to hit this one guy and you're like, no, not that guy, that guy right there.
And as we learned, friendly fire will be tolerated.
Oh, friendly fire is a large concern in this game. I don't have any problem with that, just for the record. I think that's fine. You just got to, I've had plenty of opportunities where I'm like, I can kill that guy. I'm probably going to kill my guy at the same time. Sorry, dude. It's your time to go.
Take one for the team.
That's right. So I wish there were a little bit more options as far as combat went. I wish there were a little bit more options as far as just the UI and stuff like that went.
Yeah.
Being able to maybe because the thing is that the characters on the battlefield are all modeled you can see all the sides of them, all 4 sides of them, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know why I couldn't just turn the entire battlefield to get a better option on stuff.
Well, because then you'd have to get more animation on the battlefield itself.
No,
No?
because the battlefield has nothing on it but guys. And those guys, you already know what they look like from every direction.
I gotcha.
So if you turn the entire battlefield, it just would have let me get a different angle.
You don't mean the
terrain.
terrain, or the... You just mean the position of the guys and just rotate that around by itself.
I mean, like, take the entire battlefield and rotate it 90 degrees to the left.
But the backgrounds and everything, you'd have to change all that.
You can leave the backgrounds the same. It should be fine.
Oh.
I don't know. Whatever. They do some stuff like that where there's some battles where you'll have like people watching in the background and stuff. Where if you turned it, it would kind of break that a little bit. But there's part of me that is just like, I need to hit this guy. Your background's real pretty, but I need to hit this guy, and I'm having a hard time picking him out from all the nitty bullshit in this thing. That, and then, okay, here's the thing. This game should have been called the Banner Saga Part 1.
Yeah.
Because, and I said this to you before, and this is the best way that I can figure out how to explain this. This is going to leave some people out who've never done this. Like, when you read Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and you get to the end of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring,
yes,
and you turn the last page, and you're like, wait, what? And you turn the page back, and you're like, where are the rest of the... We're just getting started here. Where are the rest of the pages? This game has an arc. It definitely has a story arc that goes from here to here. And inside of that story arc, they have a beginning, a middle, and end that finishes all this stuff up. But there's also meta elements in there of a larger story arc that is going to hopefully span multiple games. If this game sells enough, they're going to make 2, and if that sells, they'll make 3. The thing is that when I got to the end of Banner Saga, I wasn't even planning on reviewing this today. I was just playing it last night. I'm like, I'm going to beat this one guy before I go to bed, right? And then I beat him, and then it was like, here's a cutscene, and I was like, oh, that's shitty. All right, I wonder what happens next. You know what happens next? The credits.
The credits.
The credits happen next.
The rug gets pulled out from under you. That's what happened.
One
of the Varls comes out and says, sorry, Jeff, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Close the door.
I would like to think that he comes out like Porky Pig. He's like, that's all, folks.
You schmurgy party, God, that's horrible. Keep doing that.
You really need to stop doing that.
I know.
And, that's not really a huge knock against this game. What it means is that I was really into it. I was looking to see where it went, and then it kind of stopped. And I guess what I don't like about this is that, as we know with video games in the video game industry, there's a real chance that this shit don't sell well enough.
Yeah.
We're never going to see what happens in part 2. And, like, there's some, like, cataclysmic, world-destroying shit happening in the background that is being hinted at happening more and more over these games.
Right.
And I really want to see what goes on with that stuff. I mean, like, this game probably took me about 8 to 10 hours to finish.
Okay.
It's not short.
Right.
It's just I was all up ins, and I wanted to see what happened.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it was like the credits rolled, and I was just like, whoa,
okay.
So just,
So do you think there is a better way for them to tell part of that story, or is it just they should have advertised it differently?
I just think that it maybe could have gone as Banner Saga Part 1 subtitle.
Okay, so advertise it differently.
The Scourge of the Dredge or something like that. Like have it as a, just because I wasn't aware of that. I thought this was the whole thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't looked into it. I hadn't like researched or anything. So I just didn't know.
Wah wah.
Right. And I'll tell you right now that like there is hella incentive when you finish this to go back and totally play it again, because you've got all those decisions that you made where you got back painted into a shitty corner over here, and this thing went terribly wrong, and like, why did I do this? Or you could go back and do the whole thing again to make those choices a different way to find out what happens. And there are significant enough changes to the storyline. I mean, it's that diamond shape, right? Where it's all going to end up here eventually.
Right, exactly.
But along the way, you get to kind of craft your own story. Mm-hmm. You can be the biggest dick giant in the world, or you could be like a lovely, cuddly, wonderful giant that loves everyone. Well, you can't ever really be that, but close. So that's my biggest complaint with this, is just that it stopped so abruptly.
Yeah.
Especially because they were just starting to get into hints of this larger threat narrative that was going on.
You had a lovely evening of dinner and drinks, and then she doesn't invite you up. It's like it's the first date, Jeff, and you can't close.
Well, you know what? It would I would more liken it to like we had a lovely time, we connected really well, and then we closed at her house. We went there, we went up for drinks, we had coffee, did the horizontal mambo, and then I'm like, oh man, that was incredible. I think you're fucking great. It's like, yeah.
I'm leaving the country for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. I may come back in 6 months if maybe I don't know. You're like, what? That was great. You're like, well, you know.
Yeah.
So
you say, what? That was great. She's like,
So yeah, that was my experience with the Banner Saga. It ended before I wanted it to, and that's hardly even a criticism. It's just like I loved it so much, I didn't want it to be over. And
Sure,
it was. The game itself is $25 on Steam. $25 for 8 to 10 hours of storyline, maybe more depending on if you go back and play it over again. They also do some cool stuff. I wanted to mention this specifically. Like, there's a lot of ladies and there's a lot of men in here. None of the ladies in this game are wearing like chainmail bikinis or anything.
oh, good. That's refreshing.
None of the dudes are wearing like huge spike armor or anything. Like, they're all kind of dressed. It's very realistic. Like, you know, they got the helmets with the eyeballs cut out of it. That's about it. Nobody's wearing, you know, way too big armor or one pauldron. Nobody has the one pauldron thing going on.
Right.
I really like the art style.
Which I imagine that the one pauldron thing was pretty much the medieval equivalent of sagging.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Or like the LL Cool J thing of like just pulling up like one pants leg.
Okay. I don't know what that is. I don't.
Google it.
Explain it to me later. Anyway, okay, Banner Saga, $25, 8 to 10 hours.
What do you give it?
Value. I'm giving it 4 stars.
4 stars.
I'm giving it 4 stars.
That's a good review.
I think this is a good game. Like I said, there are a few elements of it that I feel could have been done a little bit better.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a good experience. And it was also a very kind of like retro throwback experience to a time when games were less about super flashy presentation and more about this kind of gritty just storyline. And I appreciate that. So
did it make you want to grow your beard?
Yes. I actually, since I played the Banner Saga, my beard has just been continually growing. I just have to cut it every like 4 hours, or else I'm going to have like a Rip Van Winkle situation going on.
That's troubling.
I know. It's real. Viking
disease strikes 1 in 3 men who play Banner Saga.